there, Tracy here with another video for Trinity Stamps. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I made this Galentine's Day card full of chocolate and a little bit of cherry. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so for today's video, we are going to be using the Simply Sentimental's Inside Sentiments Valentines. I'm going to be using the Happy Galentine's Day, and of course, I hope your heart is full of love and your mouth is full of chocolate. All my best wishes to you. And I'll also be using this mini heart swirl die set. And I'll have everything linked in the description box below. I've got some brown paper, but we are going to be doing some ink blending here. So I'm going to grab a piece of my Bristol Smooth paper, which I cut these to 6 by 4.5. So they do have to be trimmed down. And I'll go ahead and zoom in here a little bit for you so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to be using Piggyback Prom Queen and Lovestruck pink inks. And I've got my pink blending buddy here, and I'm just going to clean it off here a little bit on a cloth because I want to start with my lightest color, and we want to make sure that I don't have a dark color on there to muddy it up. So I'm just going to start off of my paper and then lightly blend in. It's better to do a couple of coats versus trying to push really hard on your brush when you're trying to do an ombre. So as you can see, this color is very, very light, but I will darken it up just by doing, multiple layers. And you don't need to do that with all the inks, but if you're working with a light to dark, it's better to have less and need more. Well, never mind. You know what I mean. Now I'm going to come in with the Prom Queen, which is a much darker pink. And I'm using a light hand while blending this in. And the reason that I use the Bristol Smooth paper is I just love how ink blends on it. And you'll see that in a moment when I get a harsh mark on there, how it's easily fixed. Okay, so then next we'll come in with the Lovestruck. I'm going to come back in here with my piggyback a little and darken right down towards that Prom Queen because I am looking for that ombre effect. Now we'll come in with the Lovestruck, and it's a red, but it's kind of a dark pink red. So it's more of a in the blue-red tones versus the orange-red tones. And I'm going to come in from each side, and you can see I've got a harsh mark there. Don't worry. I'll fix that. So that's the beauty of Bristol Smooth paper. And this is, I think it's Strathmore Bristol Smooth. I'll just kind of push back and forth on that, and I know I don't need to go all the way to the bottom because I know I'll be trimming quite a bit off of here. Now I'll come back in with my Prom Queen and just blend that little harsh mark right out. Getting my darker Prom Queen color blended in there, further enhancing the ombre effect. And then we just need to fix the top there with the piggyback, just to blend these out more smoothly. And I am going to wipe off my brush again a little bit. And I'm coming in with just a little bit heavier hand down towards the Prom Queen, just to get this all nicely blended. And then what I'll do is off camera, I will trim this down to the size I need with a most likely a rectangle die, because I'm going to want to do a matte layer. Listen, friends, I'm going to get as much chocolate on this card as I can possibly get. Okay, so we've got it cut down here. Now I'm going to grab my splat box, and I'm going to do some splattering. And I'll start off with my bleed proof white, and I've got a little, this is my small fan brush, and it's my favorite brush for splattering. You do it your way. This is just how I do it. So let's grab that bleed proof white. And again, this is very watered down. They will dry out if you don't use them, but I was able to reconstitute this with enough water and enough shaking the dickens out of it. So I'll just dip my brush in and just kind of tip it off on the container and then just tap the end of the brush with my finger to get the little droplets on there. I don't want giant chunks. A few are okay, but I don't want, you know, too big of, if you have too much paint on your brush, you will get giant chunks. So we want to let that dry completely before we move on. And now I've got it totally dry, and I've grabbed my distressed paints, and I've got here gathered twigs. And I'm going to mix in a little bit of ground espresso with that because I want it a little bit darker. And I'm just going to pour it out on my mat. It wipes off easily. And I'll just add a teeny tiny drop of ground espresso right on top of that. Just a squirt of water, maybe 2. And then I'll take my same fan brush that I had cleaned, and I'm going to splatter the brown on there because, as I said, we want as much chocolate as possible on this card. Because if I'm going to send you chocolate, I am going to send you chocolate. And I don't know about you, but I love chocolate-covered cherries. Even the cheap ones. I don't care. Big cherries, anything chocolate cherry. I love, love, love. All right, this is dry and ready to go. Move on to our next step. So I'm going to move it aside here. And I'm going to take the heart swirl die, and I'm going to cut 3 of each out of this brown paper off camera. I'll be right back. All right, I've got them all cut out, and I saved those little inner hearts. And the reason I saved those is because I want to use them as a template, because I want to I want to fill my chocolates with a lovely cherry, what do they call that stuff in candies? Bonbon? No. Well, truffle, like a cherry truffle-y thing. Hey, listen, I want some chocolate now. So I'm just going to draw around this heart, and I'm going to do it 3 times. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be able to fit kind of back behind the hollow heart in the top layer of the heart swirl die. So I'll cut one out on camera, and I'll cut the rest off camera and erase off the pencil marks. So as you can see, I'm not trying to do a perfect job here cutting around that line. I just kind of want the basic shape. And if I need to trim any off, I can. Let's see, check our fit. Yep, perfect. Now that doesn't mean I'll glue it on there straight, but you guys know. All right, I've got those cut out, and I realize they look white here on camera, but they are a very pale, pale pink. And you could do any color you want. You could make it chocolate too. I can see I need to trim just a little bit off of this edge right here. And we'll glue the hollow heart down to this little solid heart. And you could even, like, if you had a dark pink, like a cherry color. I don't have a cherry color paper. I'm going to have a conversation with myself about that one. Especially during Valentine season. And see, even though I had that cut perfectly, I didn't glue it perfectly. So I'm just going to scooch it around until it's on there the way I need it. And if there's any little excess on there, I'll just take my small scissors and trim it off. Easy peasy, cherry squeezy. Okay, we'll do the others off camera, and then I'll be right back, and we'll go move on to the next step. So I've got those done. We're going to move those aside for a moment. And I like a little bit of dark chocolate too. So let's move in on these little shadow layers, and let's make them more dark chocolatey. I'll grab one of my sticky mats, and I'll just lay them down onto the sticky mat. Makes them easier to color in. And this, friends, is an old stamp that I got from there. It was like an 8x10 stamp with this crazy design on it that I didn't like and was nearly impossible to stamp. So I cut this bad boy up and made it into a sticky mat. This is long before they came out with the Alta New mats. So you can see I've loved on this one quite a bit. And I'm just going to take the Weeping Willow, the Simon Hurley Weeping Willow, and blend that in onto the little shadow layers with my blending buddy. Oh boy, now I'm getting really hungry. Hopefully this, if this card doesn't inspire you to make one for yourself, you'll at least be inspired to eat chocolate because, you know, it's chocolate. You see that one spot there? Nothing I can do about that. If you spill something on your paper that has a resist and you don't realize it, it won't take the ink. I'm not making a big deal out of it. It's not, I could cut another one, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it. You know, not all chocolate is perfect. This isn't C's. I tell you, a friend of mine sent me a full box. I love the C's Bordeaux bars, and a friend of mine sent me a full 1 pound box of Bordeaux candy. Oh my gosh. I was in heaven, but I had to hide that from my family big time. Because listen, I'm one of those people that can eat one a day or one every other day. Get my family around it, and it's gone in about 15 minutes. I don't understand that, but I know some of you do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these right on top. And I'll glue the first one on camera, and then I'll glue the rest off camera. And I'm going to try and use as light of a hand as possible on my glue around the little edge. And you can always tap off the excess glue, because even though that looks like a light coating, it still smushes out. It dries clear, so I'm not too stressed about it, but I just don't want any kind of major flaws there. You see where it's lumpy? I don't want lumps. So I'll take a paper towel and just dab at it. Just to dab off any of that excess that's kind of lumped up. The rest, as I said, will dry clear, so I'm not going to stress about it. Just get that excess wiped off. Okay, let's get the other two glued and be right back. All right, got those done. Next, I'm going to start applying them to the card, to the background that we made earlier. And I apologize for being a little bit off camera here. I'll scoot you down here in a minute. What I want to do is kind of make them in a diagonal line. So I'm just kind of scooting them around, auditioning where I want them to be and where I want their swoops to end up. Let's get in camera. There we go. And then I'll glue down the first one, the center one, and then glue the other two accordingly. That way I kind of make sure that I get them spaced evenly. And yes, I do realize there's some hanging off the end, but my friend, I will not be wasting that chocolate. I promise you that. Okay, let me zoom out here a little bit just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm just sort of laying this down. And then I'll just do the other two and make sure that they're spaced evenly. Make sure I've got my swoops where I want them. And I'm not putting glue on that very edge because I know that I don't need it. Okay, and then we'll get the third one down. I love these swoopy hearts. I don't use them nearly enough. And this is more designed for a mini slimline or an A2. There is a slimline sized one too over at the Trinity Stamp Shop. And it also has the shadow layer. So I'm going to lay this down, kind of get it as even as I can, spaced between the other two. But I don't need it to be absolutely perfect. Now I'm going to trim off all that excess chocolate. As I said, we are not going to waste it. Ideally, you wait for your glue to dry, but I'm just not an ideal person. I'm impatient. but I am carefully trimming them so I don't mess it up. I have been known to accidentally cut into my card panel. All right, we've got those trimmed off. You could stop right there and call it a day, but nope. Let's make use of these swoops and fill in some of these empty spaces. Okay, let's see. Yeah, maybe we'll put one right there. No, I don't want the two exact same ones next to each other. Just kind of auditioning where I want it to go. And then make a commitment. There we go. Couple more. Let's see, I have this swoop here and I have the loop-de-loop. I think we'll do this bigger swoop here in the corner. Get that little piece off of there for now. And then, let's see, do I want this one here? I think I want that loop-de-loop. So what I'm going to do is just trim this real quick, roughly, not perfectly, so that I can get this loop-de-loop here in this corner. Perfect. All right. So once we get those glued down, then I'll trim the edges off of that and we'll move on to the next step. And again, once you've done this, you can call it done if you want to. But listen, I want my chocolate rich and thick and chocolatey. Oh, I'll take chocolate any way you can give it to me. I'll even eat an M&M if I have to. I'm not a fan. If they made M&Ms without that candy coating, I'd be much happier. I guess that's called chocolate chips, isn't it? Okay. Let's just pick up these excess pieces so they're just not distracting in your face. Cover my glue, and don't forget to do that if you're using old school glue like I am. Now I'm going to grab my glossy accents, and this will be sped up, and I am just going to fill in the top layer of the chocolate so that this kind of, would resemble how a raised swirl would look on your chocolate. If you had little chocolate sprinkles, I don't know, it might be distracting, but if you get any excess on there, just wipe it off. I'm going to do every single one of them. So this is the part that you need to be patient because you can't force glossy accents to dry. It has to dry on its own. And I'll say that I did this and then walked away and watched somebody's live video, came back and it was dry. I'm not putting it on super, super thick. And I'm using the tip of the bottle to kind of spread it, and especially to spread it into the thinner areas because I don't want to glob out anything on the thinner areas. All right, we're going to let that dry. All right, now it's nice and dry and I can move on to the next step. You could stop here if you wanted to. But no, we're going to kick it up another notch. And I've got these Nouveau Jewel drops. You could use stickles. You could use your glossy accents. You could color inside of those hearts. Do you? But I have these and I rarely ever use them. So I'm going to use them up. And I don't mind that it doesn't look perfectly smooth. I could make it thick enough to look perfectly smooth, but I would rather it look like it's been bitten into, kind of. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of this clear glitter and pour some glitter over it, and I'm going to move it away from my desk and blow the excess glitter off. Okay, now we're letting that dry. Let's go ahead and work on our sentiment. So I've got the Happy Galentine's Day, and I'm doing it in the middle of this, and you'll see why in a minute. And I've got this pink neon embossing powder. So I'm going to just stamp it a couple of times lightly with my embossing pad, move that aside, grab myself a piece of scrap paper here, and I'll pour this hot pink, and it doesn't It doesn't look hot pink when it's done, so no worries. But even if it did, a lot of times chocolate covered cherries, the inside cherry part is artificially colored, so it's definitely a hot pink. So I've heat embossed that, I've cut it out, and then I've cut a larger kind of scallop using my punches. And on the larger scallop, I'm going to go ahead and ink blend again with the Simon Hurley Weeping Willow so that it is a darker brown like the dark chocolate. I'm just going around the edges because that's the only part you're going to see. Okay, so we've got our dark chocolate sort of wrapper or something. We've got our Happy Galentine's Day, which doesn't show up as pink on my camera here as it actually is. That's okay. And I'm just going to glue this little round circle onto that little scallop circle. See, sometimes when I move it, you can see the hot pink. Okay. I'm just going to glue it flat down. Okay, set that aside. Move on to the next step. Okay, zoomed back out. Now you see where I cut that circle from. I've got a hot pink card base, or more of a fuchsia, you know, another artificial cherry flavor. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this matte layer down, which is 4 by 5 1/4. So this is an A2 size card. I'm going to make sure the opening is going the right way before I glue anything down. And I guess it probably wouldn't matter there, but when I move on to the next step, it definitely will. So I'll be covering that hole, so I didn't waste, you know, a piece of brown paper. Typically, I have a lot of color paper because I'm a little bit of a paper junkie. Okay. I like paper almost as much as I like chocolate. Let's move that little piece aside here. And now I've got my other piece, and friends, it is not completely dry, okay? But I'm not going to mess it up, I promise. First, we want to, though, stamp the inside of the card before I glue that wet thing on. So I'm going to grab my large Misty here. I'm going to lay the little card down inside. And it'll fit. And it looks like I'm covering that other piece with my Misty lid, but I'm not. It's sitting up. Don't worry. Our chocolate and our cherry is safe. So I'm going to grab the stamp set again and grab the Chocolaty sentiment. And just lay it where I want it. And then sometimes for me, and I don't know about you, but when I'm doing them sideways like this, I have a hard time wrapping my brain around getting it on straight. And so I'm using kind of the grid on my Misty to kind of adjust it to make sure that it's on there straight. Let's check from this side. Yep, I need to lift it. And I'm using that kind of center line there to line up because it's a 2-line sentiment. So as long as that's in the center, then this is fairly straight. straight adjacent, straight enough. Then I'm going to use my VersaFine Clair in Acorn because more chocolate, please. And go ahead and stamp this down. And I'll do a couple of light stampings versus doing one hard smush. And there's the inside done. And it's pretty straight, so I'm not mad. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out of the Misty. And it may be kind of hard to see on camera, but off camera you can see it perfectly well. All right, so let's go ahead and move right along. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue this portion down, being careful not to touch the middle of my hearts. So that Nouveau Drops is going to take a little bit longer to dry because it's in such a thick application. It will dry though. And we'll go ahead and just get that centered on the matte layer. And I'll just give it a press down in spots where I know it's dry. Then all we need to do is add our cinnamon and embellishments. So I'm going to put the cinnamon right about down here as if it were kind of a chocolatey label. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white pen, my white gel pen, and I'm going to mark where I need to put my foam tape, because I do want to pop this up on a little bit of foam tape. And I've got those high ridges there on the heart swoops. So I need to get around those. And I mark it because even though I eyeball where it's going to be and I'm fine, as soon as I flip it over, I'll exactly forget where I meant it to be. That's just, I don't know. I guess that's just somebody. I haven't had enough chocolate today. All right, let's get some glue on here. Let me zoom in here for you a bit. And I do glue these just so I can move it around if I don't get it on there straight, which is almost 100% of the time. I do try to use my tweezers so I can use my other hand and I have more visual of where I'm setting it. Just kind of adjust it a little until I have it where I want it. And all we have left to do is add embellishments. And then you could stop right here if you wanted to. I mean, no problem. But I'm going to grab my tidy tray, and I have these little clay hearts. These are from Trinity Stamps, and I'll name them in the description box because I never can remember the names of what I'm using here. And if they were in a bag and I put them in here, I didn't take the sticker off, so I don't know which they are. But these are kind of some pink pearly baubles or bubble. I think these are the bubble ones, and they're sort of iridescent too. So I'm going to do 3 of those right there on the cinnamon. Let's get my pick tool and flip them around. And I didn't pour a lot out, as you notice, because I have to pick those up later, and I have them mixed in the tray. So I just poured out as few as I possibly could, making sure that I didn't get too many of the gigantic ones. They're great, but I don't want them on this card. I want the smaller ones. Now, the rest of the card is getting chocolate hearts because I need more chocolate. And even though these, I think the color is coffee bean, it's chocolatey enough for me. And hey, I like chocolate in my coffee. I like coffee in my chocolate. Yum. Chocolate, coffee, espresso chip ice cream is so good. Oh, my word. All right, where else? Okay, more glue. I need more glue for more hearts. Almost done, friends. Appreciate your patience. I know this was a little bit of a longish video, but you know, I could talk about chocolate for a long time, so hopefully you can listen. You're going to walk away mad at me because you don't have a chocolate-covered cherry. Yummy, yum. No, listen, when I send this card out, I'm going to have to probably send chocolate with it. Too bad we didn't have a chocolate-scented paper. That would, I mean, you know, when you have a box of chocolates and those little wrapper things, they smell like chocolate. Could just kind of grab a few of those and stuff them in the envelope and hope the chocolate smell transfers to your paper. Okay, done. Yeah, you guys are probably sick of all the chocolate talk, but here we are. We've got our cherry cream filled hearts with our chocolate sentiment and our chocolatey card. So I hope you like this video. If you do, please leave us a thumbs up and leave a comment down below about your favorite chocolate. If you would, I'd appreciate that. And as always, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that button. Thanks so much, and here's a couple of sort of still pictures of the final image. Have a fabulous day. Bye-bye.